Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, my precious pack, and welcome back. Okay, this isn't going to be a typical video, it's not going to be a showcase of an item or anything like that, it's going to be a short general talk about the game. Since I started playing the game again a few years back, it doesn't feel like it's changed at all over that duration. We have new ships and stuff that do add a few new tactics and a few new playstyles, but majorly, nothing has really changed. The game at its core is still the same grindy, tedious game that I never recommend anybody play. And the reason I never recommend it is because most of the people I know, they have jobs, they have families, they have lives, they have work, they have school, or I just don't think they would have fun in a game that takes so much time out of the course of the day, and that's one of the reasons why I never recommend Vega. And it's sad because the game looks good. The game, as of recently, it's had a few issues, well, quite a few issues with performance, but the game team is slowly working on them. I want to suggest quite a few changes, and that's going to be what this fairly short video is going to be about. First off, quality of content should always be more important, and right now the quality of Vega is pretty low. It's low enough that I log in and hit something and give myself the excuse to log out without hitting any more targets. Normally I'll take 2 or 3 targets out, but lately I've just been hitting one target and then logging out because I've just been wearing myself down, because the game it's a repeat. You hit one target, you do it again, you do it again, you do it again, you do it again. That bores me. It just doesn't change, and it should. There should be changes in the game every now and then to spice it up, but without breaking the game. And let's go ahead and let's get into some suggestions. First off, for fleets moving forwards, whenever the development team is designing them, I would like to recommend that we all make sure our voices are heard on this subject, and I'd like to put forth the idea that instead of how they currently make fleets, I would like them to consider producing fleets based off of the fleet bay, our fleet bay, the maxed out fleet bay, or for whatever level they're supposed to be fighting, build fleets around the weight of that item, or that fleet bay level that is representative of that faction that they're using, or whatever it may be. And ensure that any ships that they use in the fleet can all fit in the fleet bay. So, if they use 50 ships or something like that, make sure they can all fit in the fleet bay with their fittings. So that we don't have some stupidly absurd fights where where your ships outnumber the players 50 to 1 or more, and they hit just as hard as a player ship does, and they'll attack at once. And the reason I say this is because I've seen more and more co-op targets and more targets in general lately that the player is outnumbered, as always. And some of the ships, they're durable, they hit hard, and it just doesn't seem right that there's just so many of them. And so long as the game is balanced, I could say I could recommend it, so long as it isn't too time-consuming, but that's another thing to talk about all in its own. For the time being, though, the game itself it needs some work, it needs some love. And for the time being, I want to suggest the first part being the fleet bay fleets, so whatever they build, try and fit it within a maxed out fleet bay for whatever the faction is supposed to be. So it's not going to be something completely overpowered, it'll be something that if there's a lot of ships, they're going to be lightly fitted and things like that. So it's not going to be something the player should fear. It's just a matter of picking which targets to destroy first, because they're the more dangerous targets. It's things like that that actually get your player base thinking, and another aspect to look into is the grind. When it takes hours on end to do anything, and then you have to put additional time in and wait for additional time, it's just a waste of time in my eyes, because you want something, you work for it, and then you still have to wait for it. And after a grind, I know that it's a free-to-play game and they all have their own premise, but I do still have my ideas about Vega, and at times the game is too tedious to play and a little bit too tedious to actually think about. And normally I just log in, hit a bunch of targets, and log out while I repair, and I don't even think about it. I just look forward to logging out. And that isn't what any game should ever want, especially not a free-to-play game, is when people fall into the mindset of do something simple, then log out, you're going to see a drop in your player base over a steady time, because as they play longer and longer, they're going to have more and more interest in other games, because your game is dull, boring, and it just kind of falls short. And if they find a game that allows them to play for longer periods of time in a shorter period of time, and what I mean by that is instead of playing for like 15, 20, 30 minutes, which is a typical StarCraft session or a Total Annihilation session, you'd be able to compete with some of those games. But then you have to deal with the issue of how long are they going to be logged out of the game after that, because if they put in just a short session, you have a chance of losing that potential player as a customer, because they could potentially buy from you. But if they log out without even thinking about it, they're not going to spend anything on your game. They're not even going to think about it. They're going to log in and log out. They're doing one simple thing and then they're moving on. The game it needs to change in some better ways. First off, targets, as I recommend, need to be changed with the Fleet Bay idea. The game grind needs to be looked at, and I have a few suggestions for that as well. The first one being, look into revamping how crafting works, how fragments work, how many fragments are required, or change fragments altogether to a different, more easily acquirable aspect of the game, so it's not going to be some stupidly tedious grind to fully fit a single fleet when we may want or need multiple fleets. And another thing to look into is credit items. One thing that I really have loved so far with the current crafting system for Tier 7 is the credit items. Being able to build them so we just have to snap a finger and they're equipped on the ship. Look into expanding upon the credit items and things like that. Another thing to look into is potentially after a player crafts the initial reusable item level 3, allow them to convert or produce level 3 credit items of that item, so they don't have to continue with the grind, but they have to at least put the resources forwards to produce more of that item. And the reason I say credit is to cut down the times, to allow them to get the fittings they want a little bit more readily and a little bit more steadily, but still have to worry about resources, and not really about time. And what I really want to do with the game is to push the development team to actually consider pushing the game towards more of a resource focus instead of a time focus, and I'll explain more of that in another video, but for now we're out of time. And this video is a little bit sporadic, but it's also 2:20 a.m. and I still have a few other things to do, but that's going to be it, everybody. Go ahead and share your thoughts and ideas below, because I definitely want to hear them, and I definitely need to hear them, because we need to start working on changing the game for the better, and, well, we can't do that unless we don't have an idea of how we may want it. So, be safe out there in the void, happy hunting, and as always, I will see you in the next video.